not knowing my path at all. I remember my coach sitting down with me. I was maybe 13. She's like, where do you want to play in college? And I'm like, I can play in college. It wasn't even on my radar. And so she first sparked the idea in my head at 13 that was even a potential for me. And without her in my life, I probably never would have seen it at that young of an age that I could have been successful.
This is the Leave It Better podcast, powered by the Side Out Foundation. Here's your host, Hall of Fame coach, Janice Kruger.
Hi, everybody. Today, my guest is Katie Oleksak. Katie comes to us with this extraordinary volleyball background accomplishments. She's going to share with us how her volleyball journey has segued her into other spaces in her life. For those of you looking for some inspiration, stay tuned. As a young professional, how she's worked her way through the ranks of volleyball as a player, collegiate pro, and also as a volleyball coach at NCAA Division I level, how her leadership and how she uses her passion to cultivate some relationships that are pretty solid and steady and empower communities around a shared vision. Katie is also a new member to the Side Out Foundation and is working to help make a difference here. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Janice. I'm really excited to be here. Grateful to talk with you today.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit more background on Katie, because one of the things I love to do is, we get to see this person today now, and I always like to know, where did it start? What were the beginnings? And I'm just going to give a couple accolades that you received as a collegiate player. She was a most decorated Mountain West volleyball player there. 3 times she was voted in that league as most valuable player. All right, come on. 3 times. The Mountain West also then nominated her for NCAA Woman of the Year award. She played for the Rams, and there she has well over 5,000 set assists. And I'm thinking, did you get calluses on your fingers when you were doing that? Or you did a little tape jobs?
I had a lot of ankle sprains, but nothing with my wrist, but yeah.
And also she graduated cum laude there at Colorado State. And I'm thinking, 5,000 set assists resulted in side outs. Okay. I'm thinking you heard that so many times that you are now working with the Side Out Foundation to raise money through Dig Peak events for the Side Out Foundation. How cool is that?
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, siding out was like the number one task, right, of a setter. And to know that I'm working here now and to know the meaning behind it too, to regain control of the lives of people with metastatic breast cancer, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. We love having you here. So let's talk a little bit about volleyball, your journey. And I like to, as I said, start kind of from the beginning. And I know things about you from college. I don't know much high school and club. We can touch on that a little bit. And then let's kind of work our way through that so people know where you came from.
Yeah, sounds good. So thanks for that intro. I actually have very humble beginnings. I played every sport, was that kid who kind of just grew up, softball, basketball. And one year I tried club volleyball. And the only reason I made that first team, my 12s team, was because 11 people tried out. So I really think if 20 people tried out, I would have not been on that first team. But it was a really fun experience. I remember our first huddle, our coach, she gathered us around and she asked us what our favorite sport was. In my head, I'm like, softball, softball is number one. And then she followed up with, if you didn't say volleyball, you should leave the gym right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, reality check. Obviously,
cancel that thought.
Yeah, obviously that changed after a year of just playing competitively. And that coach actually coached me through until I was 18. Her daughter was on our team. And so she was a very key component of, me getting a collegiate scholarship, kind of goal setting, even creating me into the setter that I was. I went into the gym. She asked my position. I didn't know. So I just she said I had good hands, and that was the end of that. So it just goes to show like how important it is at a developmental age to have a good coach. At my middle school team, I was most spirited my first year. I didn't play at all. And then after, which also shows my spirit as a player, I love to rally the team. But after that first year of club, I was MVP like 8th grade. So it was really cool to see that I had potential there to then go ahead and play in high school. Whereas in high school, we also dig pink. And when I was looking at the website, considering working with the Side Out Foundation, I saw a picture of my high school team on the site. And right there, I knew, I'm like, it's meant to be, it was some girls I had played with right there front and center. So that was the only sign I needed.
That's so fun.
Right?
Love that. Right. Random things.
Yeah. And I never believe in a coincidence. Like everything, happens for a reason. So yeah, that's kind of when I was first exposed to Dig Pink. And then also at Colorado State University, where, I was really blessed with a great coaching staff, but also my first year, they didn't tell me this. The only setter, she was a walk-on, she had quit. So I'm coming in with no other setters. So there you go. So it was like lined up. I had no choice. Even if I didn't want to play, I had to. So the pressure, though, it was fun for me. It was good for me. And it forced me to, be elite at a really young age and just kind of run with it and lean into that. Because, I was the only one. And then obviously we got a setter, as we developed. It was just kind of a weird year for CSU that freshman year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So your college coach, Tom Hilbert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was great. I mean, Tom was really good at involving the community, which is, one reason I'm here. He kind of, we would go out every double days during our preseason camp, and we would pass out flyers, go into restaurants. Like every single night we had something planned with the community. And so it was so fun to play there because we had 5,000 to 8,000 fans, for big matches, small town energy. And that's something that, I feel I wouldn't have gotten if I played at, a bigger school or not even bigger school, a school in a big city. So he really was good at encompassing, like everyone was rallying around the Rams. So that was fun.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, he was one of my favorite people.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever coach against him?
I don't think so. And sorry, Tom, if you're going to listen to this here.
Yeah, he's great, though.
It wasn't memorable. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't remember.
Yeah. And then after Colorado State, I played a year professionally in Switzerland. It was during the pandemic, which, was difficult, but it was still an amazing experience. And I met a lot of really cool people. To have the opportunity to live in a foreign country was just priceless. So.
I think you also did a podcast there, didn't you?
I did. It reminds me of this, the Timeout podcast. It was essentially, what are our players doing outside of the gym? How are we leaving our lives better outside of the gym so we can perform better, when we're in the gym? So yeah, it's fun.
Are there any memories or stories that sort of stuck with you?
Yeah, at those very developmental ages, especially, there's a lot of core memories, even just not knowing my path at all. I remember my coach sitting down with me. I was maybe 13. She's like, where do you want to play in college? And I'm like, I can play in college. It wasn't even on my radar because just some background, my family, none of them were really athletes. My brother played baseball a little bit. We have like a heavy art background. So a lot lot of artists in the family. Love that. So it was kind of just this gift and her mentorship that guided me. And so she said, well, where did your parents go? I'm like, well, my dad went to New Jersey Institute of Technology. So I think that's off, like that's not even in the radar. My mom went to Colorado College, which I'm communicating with now for Dig Pink, which is just super full circle.
Very cool.
And so she first sparked the idea in my head at 13 that was even a potential for me. And without her in my life, I probably never would have seen it at that young of an age that I could have been successful. And then, so that was just a really cool moment to have made it from a young age. Then I started setting goals and, seeing where I wanted to go and things like that.
Would you mind sharing her name?
Yeah, this is Terry Spann. she's a huge coach. She coaches at Arizona Storm, started the club and is still coaching. Her daughter, Justine Spann, played at University of Colorado. So we were kind of rivals. And then some other names on that team, Lauren Stiverin, she played at Nebraska. Yeah, that was fun.
Lauren?
So I was setting up Lauren.
Oh my goodness.
Willow Johnson still playing for pro volleyball. Kalia Lanier's on the USA in the USA track. So it was a very elite team, very fun, intense at a young age. And that wasn't my 13s. That was 14s, 15s, but also it was fun. I mean, it was a good team and those girls are all still playing. And so that's what's fun is we're all in volleyball in some capacity or another.
The impact of coaches like that. We was talking with a friend of mine the other day and just how teachers and coaches, you hear stories of just something somebody said or asked you to do, and it sort of changed your direction or pushed you along a little faster. And so thanks for sharing that with me. That's great. I think that club in Arizona was also a Dig Pink club for us.
Yeah. I'm excited to kind of circle back with Terry and see how they can get plugged in again. And definitely when I was 12, I remember putting a pink jersey on. So, yeah.
I mentioned earlier that you were nominated by the Mountain West Conference for Woman of the Year award. What'd that feel like?
That was a very surreal moment because when you're a freshman or sophomore in college, you're thinking, oh, I want to be All-American. I want to, all these accolades. And I didn't even realize that, Woman of the Year was even a possibility. And I think I just naturally fell into that nomination because, honestly, of the extracurricular things that I was doing that made me a well-rounded person and player. So, in that article, I know they talk about, like, I was volunteering with my church and I was the community service organizer for our SAC committee, which is like the student athlete committee and things like that. Those were the things that kind of fueled me to also be better in the gym. And that's why I'm here today too, is, I always view volleyball, it's a fun game, but it's also a vehicle to make change, to create community. And so I think having both, the successes on the court, but also the community engagement component, I was honestly so surprised to have been nominated, but I felt really honored. And it was a really surreal experience, to get that call and to do that interview. And it was really special because I wasn't really striving for that at all, but it just goes to show if you put in hard work, things will happen. So that was a really cool way to kind of close out the college career, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty big. Let's talk just briefly about some of your background, your undergraduate degree. So you have a lot of background in exercise and health. That degree was from Colorado State. And then you had your master's degree from San Diego State. And there's some mention of leadership.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about these things so some of the players that might be listening can have an idea about those two paths that you chose and the opportunities they have allowed you.
Yeah, it's been a really cool experience. And I remember when I was young, people said, you will not work in whatever your major is. And I never really believed them until I'm here now. And it still is applicable, especially leadership. But the health and exercise science, I actually my full path was to go into nursing, which a lot of people didn't know. And so I was a certified nursing assistant. So I was working at like a retirement community doing nursing. And then I had to quit that because we had season was starting up and also the pandemic hit. And I felt this, I don't want to say dread, but I just knew nursing wasn't it for me. And if I was going to go down that path, that was kind of it. And so I reopened my imagination kind of during my professional year of what next. And that's when I kind of tapped into coaching and that leadership degree, which now I have a, health and exercise science degree and a leadership studies degree, which go hand in hand. And what I'm doing now, right? We have the metastatic breast cancer research that we're talking about and we're advocating for. Then we also have the leadership component of rallying the community. And so that was huge. There it is right there.
I mean, wow, stamp.
Yeah,
put the stamp on.
It was just perfect. And coaching also encompasses both as well, right? The health and exercise science. And when people would get injuries, I would kind of talk anatomy with the physio, the athletic trainer. But something
showing off a little.
I know. I had to remember my anatomy. I went through all that work to not use it.
Right.
And so the leadership degree that was at University of San Diego, it was very eye-opening. It actually exceeded my expectations. There was a certain coursework called restorative justice, which is essentially, it's a certificate program, and it's a lot about repairing harm. A lot of it is about the incarceration system, of how we can kind of stop the cycle of incarceration. But I actually applied it to volleyball, and I would kind of do these harm resolution type of circles, community building circles with the team, which were almost preventing, conflict from acting out on the team. And so it was really cool to apply what I was learning firsthand with the volleyball team. Essentially, you sit them in a circle and you ask a profound question and you all get to know each other. But the circle, it kind of just makes everyone all unified and on the same playing field. And so that was a huge takeaway for me of how to just build community on teams, live restoratively, and also incorporate kind of some leadership theory that I learned along the way.
You do a pretty good job of tying everything together, I feel.
That's I just kind of, I try to see what doors open and how they connect. I love living that way. Yeah. Yeah.
So the experience at San Diego, wow, that was like a Final Four experience and working there with Jennifer Petrie, who's again one of my favorite coaches, and she was a nemesis when I started coaching at Maryland. She played for the College of William and Mary. God, she wasn't very big, but she was just like dynamite and scrappy and just never quit. And I see that on her face still today. And I think your experience with that, how lucky you are. I love luck.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing.
You are.
And Jen, she's still got it today. The team would go play beach and she would just be, hitting these shots and passing. And I'm like, wow, okay. Jen was a great leader. It's also great to just have a female head coach above me to kind of learn from. And never did I think in this experience that we'd be going to the Final Four. And as a player, I never had that experience. So, I'm sure you've experienced this, Janice, like you kind of, as a coach, you get to not live vicariously, but live out those goals sometimes of, experiencing what it's like at a different level, but mentoring the players instead. So it was so fun. And, I had a minor role as a graduate assistant, but I still, was making in-game decisions and statting and charting. And so it was just, a really cool, almost Cinderella story for the team. Yeah. But also the University of San Diego, they've had a legacy of success. So no surprise there, but just to see Jen, and her leadership in that moment it was cool.
It was. A lot of people were cheering for you guys. A lot of people.
I know, right? That underdog mentality.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about your experience as a pro, because this was during the pandemic was coming into play here. Back in that day, we now have 2 leagues, or actually 3, if you count Athletes Unlimited, that players can play here in the United States, unlike what you had to go through. And, Switzerland's not a bad place to go, though, I have to say, right?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I think you made a comment. Sometimes it's okay to do something because you regret it if you don't. What'd that mean about that experience?
Yeah, so that quote actually was from my sports psych. So leading into that pro season, I was kind of on the fence. It was COVID, everything was closed down. I wasn't sure how the season was going to be. And she just asked me, she was like, when you're in 10 years, are you going to regret if you don't go? And I said, yeah, I'll always wonder what it would have been like. And she said, there's your decision. And I had never thought of a decision process being that easy, right? I always like mull over everything. Like, oh, dang. And so right when I decided, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in. Pro leagues, they didn't exist. But honestly, I went over there to travel and to live in a new culture. And so even if those US leagues did exist at that time, I think I still would have taken the leap of faith, just for the growth and the journey that I went on. But there were obstacles. We weren't allowed to have fans, and the borders were closed, so we could only play Swiss teams. But there were a lot of fun American girls on my team. So we just like every weekend we'd have game nights, and we'd just quarantine with each other. And so talk about the friendships and the bonds. And yeah, it was great. And I would encourage anyone who's considering to play professionally, either in the US or abroad, to try it, especially if you have that little idea of what if. Just go for it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that goes along with your sense of understanding of being comfortable with the uncomfortable. And this is something that you hear, players are trying to grow and they're trying to change, develop, learn something new. And that's a really good philosophy to have, is be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself in that position over there?
Definitely. And I think the only way to do that is to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, to learn how to be comfortable in them. And, I find I'm still doing that today. I'll, try new workout class, something so small, like try new workout classes or go somewhere alone. And it's pretty uncomfortable. But the more I do that, the more I find, it's easier to grow that way. Young athletes today, too, I feel like, at least from the coaching perspective, we kind of had to push them into those uncomfortable spots, right? That's what spring's for. You're lifting heavy, you're competing in that way. So it's definitely tricky as a coach too, to find you don't want to push them too hard, right? But you want them to get a little uncomfortable so they can grow. Yeah. So important.
Yeah. Don't break them. Don't break them.
Easier. I know, right? Easier said than done though, both as a person and a coach. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other areas you mentioned, being a setter, being in that role, there's experiences where you have to really know how to handle pressure. I mean, the pressure's going to come. It's going to be a lot. And I see that as being something in today's athletes as well, that they're really providing for these young women, is they're teaching them how to manage that through mental stuff, mental preparation, or just going through practices that challenge you to be in that space, right?
Yeah. That's huge. The mental prep. Yeah. As an athlete, I did that on my own, but now, at USD, we would do that with the team. We would do meditations, we would do things, and it goes a long way.
Yeah. Maybe this question's for your parents. Were you born a leader?
That's so funny.
Because you have some serious leadership skills.
Oh, thank you. In third grade, my third grade teacher told me, and I don't know if I was being a bad kid or she was just trying to motivate me, but she told me that I could be a really great leader one day. And I'll never forget that. And we had student of the month, and I think she gave me the leadership one. So I don't know if I was actually, a good leader. She was just reinforcing that so I would be with the class. But, I love learning about leadership. I love constantly learning, listening to podcasts, reading books. And so that's why I feel like that degree too kind of aligned with, just learning more about leadership theory was interesting. And it also helps you, my coursework helped me understand other people too and how they lead. So that was interesting.
Yeah. So what kind of advice could you give, like somebody's like, yeah, I really want to try to be a good leader, It just comes into their soul and they're thinking, this is something I want to work on.
Ooh, good question.
What are you going to tell them to start with?
I always think leveraging your strengths, especially leadership can come in a lot of different forms. You can lead by example. There's vocal leaders. And so knowing what your strengths are and what you're most comfortable in, we never want to force, especially as coaches, that quiet, timid, hard worker to be yelling at the team because it's just uncomfortable. And so I really genuinely believe everyone can be a leader if they find their niche and they kind of find what they're good at and they lean into that and they run with it. Whether that's connecting with people. I think that's one of the biggest forms of leadership. That's, being vocal. So I think that takes time. I also think, going back to being uncomfortable, that takes being put into a situation where you need to lead, a group project or a tough situation on the court. How am I going to lead best? So I'm still figuring that out. But yeah, it's fun to try and tap into different things to try and find, my leadership style too.
Yeah. I love your keep learning mentality. Do you try to learn something new every day? How's this fall into your life?
I do listen to a lot of podcasts. That's how I learn, when I'm driving. I wouldn't say daily, but there's always something out there you can learn. So I surround myself with people who have the same mentality, and then we can all learn together. And, I love a fun fact, things like that.
Okay. Oh. Did you have one for today?
No, I realized I said that and I don't have one. So I probably shouldn't have thrown that out there.
All right. So, one of the things when I was researching you, some of the photos, action photos of you setting, wow, so athletic and so in shape. And I know at some point, maybe when you went pro, nobody's like knocking at your door to stay in that space. Did you love that part of it, of excelling as an athlete? Or was that something you're like, oh, I have to do that?
No. Oh my gosh. It was so fun. It's, I loved, people asked me what's my favorite skill. It was jousting, which is so random. But for, people who aren't super familiar with the joust, I know we have volleyball listeners, but it's just going up at the net and just battling with someone. That was so fun for me. Being athletic in that way was great. Actually, when I was younger, some of my first coaches told me I wasn't athletic. I was clumsy. My parents weren't athletes. So it's kind of a prove them wrong mentality.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Okay, let's go. Let's train. Let's jump high. Things like that. So being in the front row was my favorite. I like to be really active. I'm not nearly I can't jump nearly as high as I used to. I'll play some beach volleyball. And I try, but blocking in the sand is way different. It's, you really got to get up there. So, but that's what was so fun about the game. And I always valued, trying to dabble into other sports, not necessarily competitively, but just to keep, your mind working and your body in a different way, tennis, swimming, things like that.
There was one other attribute of yours that I noticed. You had always a smile on your face. And your celebration and your eye contact and your ability to lead, I'm sure that's all like leadership. But I would have loved to play with somebody like you that's so pushes you hard and just has that amazing smile. I mean, I'm sure the fans in Colorado also love to watch that.
Thank you, Janice. I didn't realize that. That is coming from a coach just analyzing pictures, that's awesome. I am smiling quite often, and then we'd take these serious photos for our photo shoots, and I'm like laughing and, I could never really dial in. Obviously in high tense situations, I knew when to smile. I knew when not to, things like that. But it makes everything more fun just to keep it light. That's funny that you noticed that just looking up pictures. I believe it.
Without a doubt. It was like, boom. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. So let's turn the corner here just a little bit and let's talk about why the Side Out Foundation. How did we get here? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So we touch on, some bits and pieces, but I grew up competing for Dig Pink in Dig Pink events. And it wasn't until I really started coaching and running those events at USD that I realized the significance behind them and the significance and what these events actually were. We're not just throwing on a pink jersey, but we are advocating for the metastatic breast cancer community. We are pushing research forward. And I just love that as a coach. I was passionate about that, as well as other opportunities. We were involved with Team Impact and other community service things. And so when, this position kind of opened up, it was a no-brainer. I was like, oh my gosh, once again, we go back to that health background, leadership, community engagement. it was kind of all three of the things I was passionate about, but also my values when it comes to social impact and making a change through the sport that we all love best. I was like, this is amazing. And now that I've been on staff, for a couple of months now here, I can just see so much more what we're doing. And I'm just so bought into the vision, and the mission of Side Out, which is, pushing this research forward for the metastatic breast cancer community, but also rallying these advocates and harnessing like the voice of youth to also push it forward and create a community. So it's just been amazing. It's been kind of all of my work up to this point has like accumulated into this position. And it's fine because I'm still in the volleyball world too.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit of everything for me.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way. Coaching collegiately and having the opportunity to start with the Side Out Foundation once I retired. It's like I stayed connected to my peeps.
Yeah.
And then I also got to do something different to help other folks outside of volleyball, but still connected with that.
Yeah. You're
going to love this job. Yeah, I think you're going to be great at it too. So what excites you most about doing your role here at the Side Out Foundation? You're working with teams, clubs, getting the message out there, helping people understand how to do it and why they should do it and what the impact can be.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting to expand more in the West. That alone, I think is just, there's so much potential there. I'm living out in San Diego now. And so having that community, I'm from Phoenix, I played in Colorado. So kind of rallying the communities and sharing the Side Out mission. I think it all comes down to sharing the mission so that other people are empowered to share it as well. So I'm excited to kind of get the word of mouth going where people know what a pink out game is or what, breast cancer awareness month is, connecting those and really having people talk about Side Out and talk about the research that we're doing. And so I'm going to some team camps to kind of educate people, talk to people. And, one of the camps I'm going to on Monday, there's a coach there that I played club with. And so it's those connections where it's like, hey, let's sit down, let's grab a coffee. And let's dive into, how you can really make a difference through volleyball. It's exciting.
Yeah. Reconnecting with those folks out there that maybe you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Do you have a quote that you sort of live by or that's kind of a significant message to you at any point?
Of course I have a quote. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so deep when it comes to quotes and stuff and manifestation. So no, it depends on the season, but one that I keep circling back to is always growing with grace. So I'm a very spiritual person. And so that brings in, the growth mindset along with doing that with grace. And then also I can do hard. That was a big one. Yeah.
Ooh. That's good.
That was a really big one when I was an athlete. And then, when you're in any uncomfortable position, just I can do hard. I can do hard.
Biggest difficulty you've ever had to deal with?
I think the hardest probably season in my life was playing professionally during a pandemic. My grandmother had breast cancer, not seeing family. Doing a new, that wasn't a specific moment, but it was a 9-month season, right? Of having your ups, having your downs, but knowing, okay, I'm going to get through. My grandmother, she ended up living 2 or 3 years after that season, which was amazing. And so all the fears that I had, they, I don't want to say it didn't come true, but it was all okay. But still, you're working and navigating through, okay, I can't leave the country. We got COVID during that time, so we're all quarantined. So that was very difficult. When you say a difficult moment, that was something where you get through that and you're like, okay, I can do anything.
Well, I'm sorry about your grandmother.
Yeah, she was, she passed away when she was 97. And
she
was
goodness.
Just with it until the end. And so that was actually another difficult moment, but a really empowering moment. I had the chance, it was just serendipity. I was just visiting Phoenix and it was her last weekend. And so we got to say goodbye and she gave me life advice. And then, it was amazing. As soon as I came home, because I always feel like people choose, sometimes when to say goodbye. As soon as I got back, like the next day she passed away. So that was difficult, but it was also very spiritual moment.
Is that advice she gave you something you could share with us?
Yes, actually. And that's actually, one of my quotes. It will always work out.
Ah, love that.
And hearing someone who's 97 just say, Katie, stop stressing. It'll all work out. It was like what I needed to hear in that moment. And so I have her picture in my room with like, it'll all work out.
Love it.
Yeah, but that was really profound advice. I'm like, if Nana can go through, all those years and it all worked out, then I can do anything.
Well, Katie, thank you for today. I just love getting to know you better. The journey I've seen you be on already is so impressive and so fun. I'm tuned in to watch the show, to continue on and to watch you continue to grow. You're just quite an exceptional young lady, and I'm really proud that you're a part of the Side Out Foundation.
Oh, thank you, Janice. This has been amazing, and I love getting to know you too.
Thank you for listening. Please share your feedback with us at side-out.org.